"Mama, what do stars look like?" Ton's voice was soft as he lay on the bamboo mat beside his mother, staring up at the sky he could not see. His blind eyes blinked slowly, empty and searching. Aya Ton, his mother, didn't answer right away. She looked up at the night sky, where stars sparkled like diamonds on dark velvet. Her chest rose and fell, quietly, like the wind brushing the tops of the palm trees. "They look like tiny lanterns hung by the gods," she finally whispered, her voice calm but full of something deeper. "Each one has a name, and they shine just to remind us we are not alone." Ton smiled. "Can you catch one for me?" She laughed gently, but her heart was tight. "Maybe one day, my son." But in her mind, a storm was rising. Ton had been born without sight. Since he was a baby, Aya Ton had done everything to give him a good life. She taught him how to walk by tapping the ground with a stick. She described the colors of the earth with her words, taught him to listen to the birds, to feel the sun, to taste the rain. But now, he was 10. And she saw something new in his face, longing. He wanted more than her voice could give. And that night, after he fell asleep under the stars he couldn't see, she sat up in the dark. Her hands trembled. There was something she hadn't told him. 3 days earlier, a traveler had come to their village. He was tall, with a cane carved from ebony wood, and eyes that glowed like fire. He called himself Baba Ifisgon, a healer from the far mountains. He told stories that made children forget their games. He spoke of spirits and lost magic. Then, one evening in the village square, he said something that made Aya Ton stop breathing. "A blind child may see again," he said, "but the price must be paid in eyes. Real eyes. Given freely, in love." The villagers gasped. "Who would do such a thing?" someone asked. Baba Ifisgon only smiled. "Only the one who loves enough to walk in darkness forever." Aya Ton had left before he finished speaking. But the words had taken root in her soul like seeds in wet soil. Now, sitting in the dark, she looked at her sleeping son. His chest rose and fell. His fingers twitched. He smiled in his sleep, dreaming of stars. Would he ever truly see them? She closed her eyes. Her heart was loud in her ears. She could do it. She had lived her life. She had seen the sky, the rivers, the green hills. She had seen him, his first smile, his baby toes, his tiny hands grabbing her necklace. She had seen enough. The next morning, she told Ton she was going to the market. But she didn't take her basket. She didn't head toward the yam stalls or the women selling ground pepper. She walked in the opposite direction, toward the old forest where Baba Ifisgon was said to be staying. The trees closed around her. The wind seemed to whisper secrets in her ears. Her footsteps slowed as she reached the healer's hut, hidden behind thick bushes. She stood for a moment, then knocked softly. The door creaked open. And there he was, Baba Ifisgon. He said nothing, only nodded once, as if he had been expecting her all along. Aya Ton stepped inside. Back in the village, Ton waited by the fire. He touched the ground, searching for her cooking stick. He listened for her song. But there was only silence. Then he tilted his head to the sky. And for the first time, he wondered what it would truly feel like to see. He had no idea the stars were already watching. And one of them was about to fall. Ton waited all day. He listened for footsteps, for the jingle of his mother's bracelets, for the soft hum of her favorite song. But the house stayed quiet. The firewood burned low. The pot remained empty. His stomach growled, but his heart growled louder. Something was wrong. Deep in the forest, Aya Ton sat on a low stool inside Baba Ifisgon's dark hut. A single candle flickered between them. Shadows danced on the walls like ghosts. "Are you sure?" the old healer asked, his voice low and serious. This is a gift you cannot take back. She nodded, eyes full of tears. I am sure. Baba Ifisgan leaned forward. You must understand. You are not dying, but you will live in darkness, forever. You will never see your son's face again. You will never see the world you gave him. I don't need to see it, she whispered. I just want him to live in it fully. The healer stared at her for a long moment, then stood. He opened a wooden box. Inside were old tools, charms, and a tiny jar of silver powder. The gods will hear this sacrifice, he said, because it is made from love. Ayaton closed her eyes. Her hands gripped the edge of the stool. The air thickened. The candle hissed. And then, the world went black. That night, Ton sat outside, arms around his knees, listening to the wind. He didn't cry, but his heart ached. His mother had never left him this long. He whispered to the sky. Mama, where are you? Suddenly, he felt something strange. A breeze brushed his face, but it wasn't the usual kind. This one was warm, soft, almost like a hand. Then, a flash. Light. Colors. Blinding and bright, like the sun had burst inside his mind. Ton gasped. He fell backward, hands over his face. He opened his eyes slowly. At first, everything was blurry, moving. Then, bit by bit, shapes formed. Trees. Grass. Firelight. Stars. Stars. He could see them, tiny lights in the sky, just as Mama had said. Tiny lanterns hung by the gods. Ton laughed out loud. He spun in circles. He touched everything, the mat, the clay walls, the spoon, the broom. Everything was real, full of color and shape. I can see. I can see. He shouted into the night. But his joy lasted only a moment before a new thought crept in. Where was Mama? Ayaton woke slowly. She couldn't see. She blinked. Nothing. She reached out, felt a wall. Her hands trembled. She touched her own face. Her eyes burned, empty. Baba Ifisgan was sitting nearby. His head bowed. It is done, he said gently. She nodded, quiet. Will he know? I told you, he said, he must never know. The sacrifice loses its power if it's repaid. Let him live free. Let him think the world gave him sight. Ayaton swallowed her pain. Then I will go. Far. I will not disturb his joy. You are brave, the healer said. Braver than any warrior I've met. But Ayaton didn't feel brave. She felt broken. She stood, touched the walls, and began to walk into the dark. Back in the village, people gathered around Ton. They were amazed. Some cried, some clapped, some called it a miracle. No one asked about Ayaton. Ton waited for her that night. And the next day. And the next. But she didn't return. Slowly, his days became full of new wonders, colors, animals, roads, people's faces. The village praised him. They called him blessed. They said he was chosen. He smiled. But deep down, something was missing. Something he couldn't name. Far away, a blind woman sat by a river. She listened to the sound of water. And in her mind, she saw one face only. Her son's smile. The moon was full that night. It hung in the sky like a silver eye, quiet and watching. In a part of the village where no one lived anymore, where broken huts leaned like old men and weeds covered the paths, a boy walked alone. Turned. His eyes were wide open. He could see everything now. But he was looking for one thing. Mama. He whispered into the wind. It had been 2 weeks since his sight returned. Everyone in the village had danced and sung. They called it a miracle, a gift from the gods. People brought him roasted yams and kola nuts. Elders asked him to bless their children. Ton smiled politely. But each time someone touched his head or called him the chosen, he felt a tightness in his chest. Because Mama had not come back. She was not there to see his face, to hear the joy in his voice. She had disappeared like smoke in the wind. And nobody seemed to care. That morning, Ton went to the village chief. The man was wise, with white hair like cotton and eyes full of secrets. "Baba," Ton said, "do you know where my mother went?" The old man looked away. He stirred his cup of bitter leaf tea. "Sometimes," he said slowly, "mothers carry heavy loads and walk far, farther than anyone knows." "What does that mean?" "It means your mother's love is bigger than this village. Bigger than our eyes." That didn't help. So Ton left and began asking everyone he knew. Some said they saw her walk toward the forest. Others said she had gone mad from worry and ran away. One boy whispered that she had died. Ton punched him in the face. He didn't believe them. He couldn't. So now, under the moonlight, Ton walked alone into the old part of the village. The air was cold. The wind tickled his ears. An owl hooted from a tree. He passed the broken wall where he once played hide and seek. He passed the garden Mama used to weed with her bare hands. And finally, he reached the tree they used to sit under together on days when her back ached and he wanted stories. He sat under it now, hugging his knees. "Where are you, Mama?" The wind whispered through the leaves. And then, a soft voice behind him. "She's gone." Ton turned quickly. A thin woman, old and bent, stood in the shadows. Her face was wrinkled like river lines in the sand. Her eyes were pale, distant. "I saw her," the woman said. "I saw her go into the forest. She was crying." "Why?" Ton asked, stepping forward. The woman didn't answer. Instead, she pointed to the sky. "The moon knows. It saw what happened." Ton looked up. The moon shone brighter than ever. He didn't understand what she meant, but deep in his heart, something stirred. A memory. A story. The gods can give sight, but it must be paid for, with real eyes. Given in love. Ton froze. He remembered the healer's story. He remembered the whisper in the market. He remembered how his mother had left with no word, and how the very next day, he could suddenly see. "No," he whispered. "But yes. Yes." The truth hit him like thunder. His mother had given him her eyes. He fell to the ground. His hands dug into the dirt. His heart screamed, "Mama!" But only the wind replied. Far away, Ayaton sat beneath another tree, in another village. She was still blind. She was still quiet. But her lips moved gently. She was whispering a prayer. For her son. For his joy. And for the day he would finally remember her face. Ton did not sleep that night. He sat beneath the tree until the moon gave way to dawn, until the birds began to sing, and the village started to wake. But inside him, something had gone quiet, too quiet. His mother was gone. Not because she left, but because she gave. She had given him everything. Her stories, her strength, her hands, her voice, and now, her sight. And he had forgotten her. Days turned to weeks. The village buzzed with the tale of the boy who could now see. Traders came from nearby towns just to look at him, like he was a gift from the gods. The chief spoke of turning him into a priest. Some women whispered about marrying their daughters to him. But none of it touched his heart. Ton wore a smile on the outside, but inside, it cracked. He laughed, but the laughter never reached his eyes. He danced, but his steps were heavy. because every time he opened his eyes and saw the beauty of the world, he saw it through her sacrifice. And she was nowhere. One morning, Ton left the village. No one noticed. They thought he was going to fetch palm wine or chase squirrels near the hills. But he had a plan. He was going to find her. He followed the river for days, asking at every village, describing her. Short woman, strong back, warm smile. Her voice sounds like humming, but she's blind now. Most people shook their heads. Some pointed him toward the cities. Others asked why a boy like him was searching for a beggar woman. But he didn't stop. In a crowded town square, dusty and filled with market noise, he saw her. She sat on the ground, her clothes old and faded, her hands gently feeling the space around her. She held a small bowl in her lap, with only a few cowries inside. People walked past her like wind through grass. No one really looked. But he did. His heart jumped into his throat. He wanted to run to her, to grab her, to fall into her arms and say, "Mama, I see you now. I remember. I'm sorry." But he didn't. He froze. Because something ugly crept into his mind. What if the people saw? What if they laughed? The miracle boy, with a beggar for a mother. Would they still respect him? Would they still praise him? Ton took a step back. Then another. He turned. And walked away. That night, the wind howled louder than usual. Ayaton sat alone by the well behind the market. Her body ached. Her bowl was nearly empty. She hadn't eaten since morning. But she didn't cry. She never cried. She turned her face to the sky. "I felt you today," she whispered. "Were you close?" She reached out, as if to touch something in the air. Then she smiled. The mother knows. Even in darkness. Ton stayed in the town for 3 more days. He passed by the square but didn't go near her. Each time, his feet would freeze, then run. He hated himself. At night, he dreamed of her face, then woke with guilt crushing his chest. He watched other mothers laugh with their children, their hands locked together. And he thought, what kind of son am I? On the 4th day, there was a festival in town. Drums beat loud. Dancers spun like flames. The air smelled of roasted meat and sweet cakes. At the center of it all stood a sacred mirror, brought out only once a year. They called it Ojo Ale, the mirror that sees the living soul. People lined up to look into it. Some laughed. Some screamed. Some wept. Ton stepped forward. He stared into the mirror. And what he saw broke him. He didn't see his face. He saw hers. Blind, tired, and alone. He saw her smiling even in pain. And he saw himself, walking away from her, over and over again. He dropped to his knees. The crowd turned, shocked. The miracle boy was weeping like a child. "Where is she?" he shouted. "My mother, where is she?" He ran to the square, past the dancers, past the chairs, past the noise. But she wasn't there. The space she used to sit was empty. Only her bowl remained. Still and cold. Ayaton had moved on. She had heard the music and thought it too loud. She had taken her walking stick and followed the road out of town, listening to the birds as she went. She didn't know her son was searching for her. She didn't know he had cried. She didn't know the mirror had finally made him see the truth. She only knew that love, real love, sometimes lives in silence. And even in darkness, it never fades. The sky over the great city turned gold as the sun began to set. The streets were full of music and laughter. Banners danced in the wind. It was the day of the festival of the mirror, a day when everyone wore their finest clothes and thanked the gods for light, sight, and life. Prince Ton walked through the palace garden, dressed in silk. His eyes sparkled like morning dew. He had everything: a large house, servants, friends, and people who praised him. But something inside him was restless, like a drum beating in the dark. As he walked toward the palace gate, something strange happened. A guard ran up to him. "Your Highness, a beggar woman is asking for you. She says she knows you." Ton frowned. "A beggar? At my gate? She's old, blind, and says your name over and over." Ton's chest tightened. "What name?" "Ton, my son," the guard whispered. "She keeps saying, Ton, my son. I remember the sound of your laugh." Ton froze. His hands began to shake. He didn't know why. He had not heard that voice in many years, or had he forgotten it? He stepped outside. The crowd parted slowly, making way. There she stood, an old woman in torn cloth. Her eyes were white as clouds. Her skin was thin. But her hands trembled in the same way his mother's once had, long ago. "I do not know you," he said quickly. The woman smiled softly. "That's all right. But I know you. I know your first cry. I know how you held my hand when the world was dark." Ton stepped back. I was blind as a boy. I remember a healer, a ritual, and then light. But nothing after that." The woman tilted her head. "You do not remember who gave you the eyes you see with? I was told it was a miracle." "Not a miracle," she whispered. "A mother." Before he could speak again, the high priest appeared, calling, "Your Highness. It is time for the mirror ritual." Ton turned away from the old woman, trying to shake off the feeling in his chest. The festival of the mirror was a sacred ceremony. When you looked into the holy mirror, it was said you would see your true self, not just your face, but your soul. He stepped onto the temple stage. Thousands watched. The mirror was placed before him. He looked and gasped. He did not see his reflection. He saw a young blind boy crying in the dark. He saw a mother praying, holding his hand. He saw her walk into the forest, eyes full of love and fear. He saw two eyes being taken, and light entering his world. Then he saw himself as he walked away, leaving that woman behind. Ton fell to his knees. Tears streamed from his eyes. The crowd went silent. He stood and ran back to the gate where she had been. She was gone. He ran into the crowd, calling, "Mama! Mama!" People stared, confused. He was the prince, calling for a beggar. Then he saw her, slowly walking with a stick, almost lost in the crowd. He ran and grabbed her hand. "Mama! I remember now." She touched his face gently. "Then you truly see, my son." The drums in the city faded. The sky turned purple. And in that moment, for the first time, Prince Ton finally saw, not with his eyes, but with his heart. From that day on, Ton changed. He gave up the palace. He moved back to the village. He carried his mother everywhere. He helped her touch flowers, feel the sun, and hear the birds. When people asked him why he no longer chased riches, he would say, "Because I already saw the most beautiful thing. The eyes that loved me first."